The war drums are beating across the Middle East, and Moscow is now on the front line of diplomacy. In a high-stakes power move, Russian President Vladimir Putin has spoken directly to Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian as tensions threaten to spiral into a full-scale regional war. The Kremlin says the message was clear: de-escalation before the region explodes. But this was no isolated call. Just hours earlier, Putin was on the phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, placing Russia at the center of a dangerous geopolitical triangle: Israel, Iran, and the wider Middle East. According to the Kremlin, Putin laid out Russia's firm position: political and diplomatic solutions must replace missiles, airstrikes, and retaliation. Moscow is pushing hard for dialogue, stability, and security, even as the region teeters on the edge. This is crisis diplomacy under extreme pressure. With Washington watching, Tehran on edge, and Israel on high alert, Putin is positioning Russia as a mediator, a power broker, at a moment when one wrong move could ignite a regional inferno. The leaders have agreed to stay in constant contact, because in this volatile standoff, silence is deadly, and diplomacy may be the last line before war.
As Iran burns in its biggest protests in years, a hidden diplomatic channel has emerged, revealing how close the region may be to war. Days before nationwide protests erupted across Iran in late December, Israeli officials quietly sent a message to Tehran through Russia. According to diplomats and regional officials, Israel assured Iran it would not launch strikes if it were not attacked first. Iran responded through the same Russian channel, agreeing it would also refrain from a preemptive attack. The exchange was extraordinary given the deep hostility between the two rivals, who fought a 12-day war just months earlier. The back-channel communication highlighted Israel's effort to avoid being blamed for escalating tensions with Iran. At the time, Israel was preparing for a major military campaign against Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militia in Lebanon. Privately, Israel sought to keep Tehran on the sidelines while it focused its firepower northward. Publicly, however, Israeli officials were striking a far more aggressive tone, openly hinting at renewed strikes on Iran. Those threats centered on Iran's rapidly replenishing ballistic missile stockpile. The contrast between public rhetoric and private reassurance underscores the fragile balance both sides were trying to maintain. Iranian officials responded positively, but remained deeply suspicious of Israel's intentions. According to officials familiar with the exchange, Tehran feared Israel's pledge left room for U.S. strikes coordinated with Tel Aviv. The concern was that Washington could hit Iranian regime targets while Israel trained its military focus strictly on Hezbollah. For Tehran, staying out of a wider conflict was seen as the lesser of two risks. A senior regional official described the arrangement bluntly, saying for Iran it was a good deal. U.S. officials have since said Iran's support for Hezbollah has already decreased as Tehran battles domestic unrest. But the calculus has shifted dramatically since those assurances were exchanged. Iran's protests have evolved into a huge challenge to the clerical establishment since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Massive crowds have demanded the government's ouster, clashing repeatedly with security forces. Iranian officials claim more than 2,000 people have died since December 28th and blamed U.S. and Israel for instigating as well as orchestrating the unrest. Rights groups place the toll above 2,600, with experts believing the true figure is far higher. As the crackdown intensified, the risk of foreign intervention surged back into focus. President Donald Trump has openly weighed attacks against Iranian regime targets in response to the violence.
Iran is on my mind when I see the kind of death that is happening over there, we think. So we're going to get some accurate numbers. I'll have it in about 20 minutes. We'll get some accurate numbers as to what's happening with regard to the killing. The killing looks like it's significant, but we don't know yet for certain. I'll know within 20 minutes. So, and we'll act accordingly.
U.S. airstrikes, if it comes to that, will have the result of protecting the protesters?
Well, you never know, do you? You never know.
Do you think it's,
so far, my track record's been excellent, but you never know.
Do you think it's going to be something kinetic like that, or more like cyber? Or
well, I can't tell you that. I know exactly what it would be. We have to make a decision. But I can't be. Obviously, I can't be telling you.
Timeline? Yeah, timeline.
That it will retaliate in the instance of U.S. strikes against U.S. assets in the Middle East. What do you say to U.S. service members about why it's worth the risk to intervene in Iran?
Yeah, Iran said that the last time I blew them up with the nuclear capability, which they don't have any longer. So Iran said that the last time. They better behave.
Mr. President, on Iran, do you have a message for the leaders currently of Iran?
Yeah, the message is they've got to show humanity. They've got a big problem, and I hope they're not going to be killing people. And I'm going to have a report very soon. It would seem to me that they have been badly misbehaving, but that is not confirmed.
Committing not to sending U.S. troops into Iran.
Why would I tell you that? Why would I? I don't talk about military strategy with a reporter, you know, even though I do like the Financial Times.
Are you consulting with our allies regarding Iran? What are they telling you, and why do you think the Iranian...
Well, I'm not going to tell you what they're telling me. I don't tell you what they...
Analysts warn such strikes could provoke Iran to retaliate against Israel, a key U.S. ally. A senior Iranian official told Reuters that any attack would trigger retaliation against U.S. military bases across the Middle East. Israel was not explicitly named, but analysts say it would almost certainly be drawn into any escalation. Despite the rising tension, Israeli officials have largely avoided overtly bellicose language in recent weeks. They have described their military posture as defensive, even as preparations quietly intensify.
No foreign entity can dictate Iran's destiny, and naturally the fate of any outsider who attempts to interfere in Iran's internal affairs should serve as a warning, reflecting the destiny of others who have tried. According to the foreign minister's statement, both negotiation and the option of war are currently on Iran's agenda. However, Iran is ready for dialogue, for negotiations, provided the preconditions are fair and not dictated, and naturally, if this process is to take shape, it will proceed with the considerations our colleagues in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs have.
I don't think it's something the United States is actively engaged in trying to hasten anything. It's a matter of respect, and this is how President Trump has framed it. He certainly wants there to be recognition that the government of Iran should not murder its own people, should not injure them and hurt them because they're protesting. They have a right to protest, and they're protesting about legitimate things. I don't think that right now the U.S. or Israel is making plans to engage. I don't know what may happen. I simply don't know. I would be totally out of my league if I said, here's what will happen. We don't know.
The caution is notable given Israel's history. In June, Israel launched a sophisticated surprise attack against Iran while nuclear talks with Washington were still underway. Security analysts say Israel would welcome regime change in Tehran, but not at the cost of absorbing devastating retaliation. Seema Shine, a former Masoud intelligence chief, said Israel is allowing the U.S. to take the lead on any potential strikes. She added there is no doubt Israel would prefer to see Iran's leadership collapse, but she warned Israel could be a primary target in any Iranian response. As a result, Israel has taken extensive steps to harden its defenses and prepare for retaliation. For now, Israel's strategy appears focused on isolating Hezbollah while avoiding direct confrontation with Iran. The most recent Israel-Iran message exchange reportedly occurred in late December. It came shortly after Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi visited Moscow. Russia's role as intermediary is not new. Moscow has repeatedly sought to position itself as a broker between Israel and Iran. Russian officials have also floated the idea to Trump, hoping mediation could strengthen Moscow's leverage over Ukraine talks. According to a Russian academic close to senior diplomats, Trump rejected the proposal. He reportedly told Moscow to focus on Ukraine first. It remains unclear whether Washington was aware of the December back-channel discussions. Israeli public broadcaster Kan reported that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently asked President Vladimir Putin to relay messages to Iran. Those messages stressed Israel did not intend to attack. Neither Netanyahu's office nor the Kremlin responded to requests for comment. As Iran's streets remain in revolt and Washington weighs its options, the private understandings of December face their greatest test.